Hello everyone. In today's era, we are facing one of the greatest challenges of mankind. With the tremendous increase in the carbon emission over the last decade, it is now a major concern to reduce the emissions for a sustainable future with zero carbon emissions. As a contribution to monitor carbon reduction progress with predictive analytics, we present our research work titled DECART, Planning for Decarbonizing Transport Sector with Predictive Analytics, an Irish case study. We developed a machine learning framework to obtain critical and hidden insights from road transport sector in reducing carbon emissions, planning for alternative resources with renewable energy, and present a case study with the facts and statistics of the country, Ireland. This research work is a collaborative work between Biocomputing and Developmental Systems Group based in University of Limerick, Ireland and Government College of Engineering, Aurangabad, India. While the carbon emissions have been drastically increasing over the last decade, the periodic lockdowns due to global pandemic of COVID-19 positively impacted the carbon emissions. Same was the case with Ireland. Ireland also witnessed a reduction in carbon by 15% in the year 2020. However, with the resumption in mobilities post-pandemic, there has been dramatic increase again in the emissions. As we are aware that emissions are increasing with the burning of fossil fuels, but here comes the question, what sectors are majorly contributing to it? Out of the global carbon emissions in Ireland, transport sector is the highest contributor and itself contributes 40% of it. Therefore, in planning the reduction in carbon emissions, we need to analyze the transport sector in depth. When we further analyze the emissions from the different modes in transport sector in Ireland, we can see that the road transport is the major contributor to the carbon emissions. The highest emission is from the fuel-based private cars, followed by heavy good vehicles and light good vehicles. This interesting analytics from ground transport leads a direction to our research. In this research work, we focus mainly on reducing the emissions from private cars in Ireland. When we look at the literature, there have been research work proposing different approaches to control the carbon emissions. To summarize, some of the works propose about reducing congestion controls through cost pricing models. Some of the other works proposes how we can harness renewable energy from the road traffics. There also have been some works investigating to optimize the use of fossil fuels from transport sector. And some of the works proposes machine learning models to understand the impact of transport sector on carbon emissions. All these works give us an idea about the latest advancements in this research direction. Now, let us discuss the objectives of our work. In order to achieve the target of carbon-free country by 2050, we need insights to find the answers to the following questions. We want to understand the behavioral patterns in the emissions from private cars in Ireland. Secondly, we want to find the measures that will inspire people to switch to electric vehicles. As people start using electric vehicles, we want to forecast the increasing energy requirements for electricity. Finally, we want to find out how this insight will help us in planning the potential use of renewable energy resources to meet the growing demands. To find these insights, we present a machine learning framework with some real-world numbers in Ireland. Now, let us discuss the architecture and applications of the DECART framework. The framework is designed with 3 phases. The first phase maps the carbon footprint of the ground transport, specifically fuel-based private cars in Ireland. The second phase forecasts the growing energy requirements with the growth in electric vehicles. The third phase analyzes the potential of clean energy resources to meet up the growing energy requirements. We have employed machine learning and time series algorithms to gain insights from the real-world datasets in Ireland. These insights can then lead into planning carbon reduction and potential use of renewable resources for a sustainable and better future. Now, let us look at each of the machine learning models in detail. The first question is, what are the existing patterns in the emissions from the private cars in Ireland? To find an insight for this question, we used the dataset of factors leading to carbon emissions from private cars. The dataset covered the details of the car from the entire country for the period of 4 years from 2017 to 2020. We performed pre-processing to fill in the missing values, and with correlation metrics, we obtained 3 significant features out of 34 total features, namely year of registration of a car, name of its manufacturer, and its engine capacity. The predictor variable was the carbon emitted by the car. We deployed random forest regressor with the division of data in the ratio 75% for training and 25% for testing. We validated the model with R2 score metrics. We then found out that the 2 topmost used manufacturers in Ireland were Audi and Subaru. We then forecasted the carbon emissions for a car registered in the year 2017 for the next 3 years for both of these manufacturers. As seen from the graph, the increase in the carbon emission in the immediate first year is negligible, while it goes on increasing over the next 2 years. This insight can be helpful in predicting the gradual increase in cost of maintenance of a car, which will gradually rise with the increase in carbon tax calculated according to the age of the vehicle. What this means is the more the age of the vehicle, the more will be the carbon tax and the more will be the cost of maintenance of a car. This can be a motivation to the people switching towards environment as well as budget-friendly alternatives to fuel-based private cars. When we consider the alternatives to the fuel-based private cars in Ireland, there are 2 types of them: hydrogen fuel vehicles and electric vehicles. Hydrogen fuel vehicles have a shorter refueling time of only 10 minutes, while electric vehicles take around 180 to 240 minutes, which is one of the major factors while switching to electric vehicles. However, there have been increasing use of electric vehicles in Ireland since 2016, while hydrogen fuel buses are about to start soon in the county of Dublin. As electric vehicles have already been in use, we consider the statistics of electric vehicles in Ireland, and hydrogen fuel vehicles are out of the scope of this work. When we consider the cost of an electric vehicle, it is around 15 to 50% higher than that of a conventional car. But in order to increase the awareness among people, there are certain intangible benefits offered by the government to the owners of electric vehicles. These intangible benefits include reduction in vehicle registration tax by 5,000 euros, reduction in tolls by 50% lesser as compared to the fuel-based cars, and savings in carbon tax by 100 to 300 euros per year, as the carbon tax can even sum up to 1200 euros per year depending on the age of the vehicle. With this growing interest in electric vehicles, how much growth can we expect with the current rates of buying electric vehicles? For this insight, we designed the next machine learning model in order to predict the increasing demands of electricity with the growth of electric vehicles. We used the time series data for monthly registration of electric vehicles in Ireland. The dataset was divided into 85% for training and 15% for testing purposes. The data was fitted with seasonal ARIMA and artificial neural network model to forecast the growth of electric vehicles in the next two years. Both the models were validated with R2 score, and seasonal ARIMA model was found to perform better among the two, as we can see a seasonal pattern in the data. So, with the seasonal ARIMA model, we forecasted that the number of electric vehicles will increase by 54.41% in the next 2 years. This is an interesting insight. However, this will also lead to increase in the demands in electricity to charge the electric vehicles. How do we potentially plan to meet them up? For this, let us look at the renewable energy resources in Ireland. Because of its geographical position, Ireland has a great potential to use wind energy for the generation of electricity. And every year, 33% of country's electricity demands are met by the electricity generated by the wind farms across the country. To understand the potential of wind energy in meeting the growth in electric vehicles, we use the real-time data from one of the wind farms of Energy Pro. Energy Pro are the specialist wind farm analysts and managers in Ireland. The dataset contained the details of 5 of their wind plants, and we have used the data from one of the plants for our study. The features used were the wind speed and the energy produced at each instance of 10 minutes over the period of 1 year from 2017 to 2018. The dataset was divided into 70% for training and 30% for testing purposes. We fitted the data using 3 models: ARIMA, ARMAX and Artificial Neural Network model. And the models were validated using R2 score metric. The Artificial Neural Network model was found to be the best performer, and we used it to predict the total energy generated in the next 24 hours as shown in the graph. However, the displayed graph was not used in the research paper due to limitations in figures. Now, let us look at the statistics obtained from these insights. The Artificial Neural Network model predicted that a farm can generate an average energy of around 5,809 kilowatt hours in 24 hours. The average energy consumption by an electric vehicle for a distance of 337.8 kilometers is 65.26 kilowatt hours. Assuming that the electric vehicles will travel around 337.8 kilometers in a single day, a single plant has the potential to power around 89 electric cars in a day. Now, the total number of wind farms in Ireland currently is 300. So, 300 wind farms can power around 26,700 electric cars in a single day. These all insights can be helpful in how much the potential existing wind farms have and how much more wind farms we need. In conclusion, we present an in-depth analysis of current emissions by road transport in Ireland and got the insights for the questions we started with. We found the existing behavioral patterns in road transport and the measures useful to increase the awareness among the people. We also found the rate of growth of electric vehicles in the coming years and its consequent energy needs. Finally, we found the insights in mapping the number of needed wind plants to potentially use the generated energy to power the grids for charging electric vehicles. As it's rightly said, sustainable development is no longer about doing less harm. Now is the time to do more good efforts. The small choices we make each day can lead to the kind of world we want for the future. And we strongly believe that like the proper planning and intelligent steps as we propose can help us to tackle this challenge to have a sustainable and green future. Thank you for your patient listening. We are now open for questions.